Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here this beautiful afternoon, and we're delighted to be hosting this program. And I want to thank the French consulate for helping us to bring Dr. Boniface here to talk about a very interesting topic about geopolitics and sports. And I have to say, I am not a sports person, but I am very interested in geopolitics. And next, I think in a few weeks, we're going to have, now that Art Basel is over, we'll have the Rugby Sevens here in Hong Kong in a few weeks. And it's always really exciting time for Hong Kong to play host to the Rugby Sevens. But I think the importance of sports is cannot be really, kind of like art, it cannot be underestimated. It definitely is soft power. And all we have to do is look at the Sino-US relationship, really begun with ping pong games. Right. In fact, Mr. Solomon, who just recently passed away, the architect of that interesting event in a couple of decades ago, started off opening up China. So politics and sports goes hand in hand, and we know that every 4 years, whether it's the Olympics or the soccer or World Series or whatever, I think it is a really important topic. And I'm glad Asia Society Hong Kong has an opportunity today to have an expert in this area, not only is in geopolitical terms, but also sports terms. But before we get to Dr. Boniface, I want to invite the Consul General, Eric Bertie, to come and say a few words. We're delighted to be able to partner with the consulate again on the French consulate. We did the film not too long ago and thank you so much. And it's always a pleasure to be partnering with the French consulate on various programs. And so can I ask the Consul General to come and say a few words and formally introduce our speaker?
Thank you, Alice. Thank you for the Asia Society to welcome today Pascal Boniface. Pascal is one of our great geostrategists in France. He created in 1990 the IRIS, Institute for International Relations and Strategy. And he was at the time, and he's always a great specialist in international relations, especially for defense and nuclear questions and deterrence. But moreover, Pascal, and it was very impressive this last day when I listened to him, has a very wide vision of geostrategy in the world. And the IRIS published every year l'année stratégique, the strategic year, which really an update about the strategic situation all over the world. In 1998, we had this wonderful World Cup, football World Cup in Paris that France won. And on that year, Pascal saw that there was some link between sport and geopolitics, and he's too patient, so he wanted to put them together. And he wrote, since that time, many books about this question, which at that time was very new. I just remind that Hervé Guémard, one of former Minister of Finance and Minister of Budget and so on, wrote a book last year about the 12 events which made France happy. The first was Bouvines in 2012 and with 14, something like that. 2015. And the second one, the last one, was the 12th of July 1998, when France won the World Cup. And really, it was a time of incredible happiness. But I think that Pascal will speak about that later. So thank you, Pascal, for coming to Hong Kong. And thank you for today, because you know that France is a candidate to welcome in 1224 the Olympic Games in Paris. The decision will be taken in September. Just Pascal is member of the advisor of the French committee preparing this Olympic Games. Is also very much involved in the FIFA football French Federation, in charge of the committee in charge of ethics. You know, it's very important. And voilà. So it's a great specialist also of sport. Thank you very much, Pascal.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you for everybody. Well, very pleased to be there, and so I'm glad to be in this marvelous place. It's tremendous, and I'm very impressed by this place. I hope that Iris could be located in such a place. Maybe, Eric, I could correct you for once because I have no two passions, geopolitics and sports. Geopolitics is my job. Sport is my passion. So it's very different. And so I've tried to make a link between my job and my passion. Because in fact, if sport is my passion, I'm not very gifted in sports. And so the only way to be in L'Equipe, in the newspaper, speaking about sport, was to write about sport, because playing football, in no way I have the chance to be on the front page of the newspaper. And so that's why it's not a mutual love. It's a unilateral love from me to football, and I compense my lack of gift by writing on football. And that's true that you are right, that at the beginning, a lot of people told me that there is no link between geopolitics and sports. And if I am interested in sport, I could do everything I want, but writing books on tactics, on a sportsman, but there is no links between sports and geopolitics. So I did my best to show that they were wrong, and I think that now it's just impossible to deny the importance of sport and in geopolitics, but it was true since the beginning, in fact, since Pierre de Coubertin has recreated Olympic Games. And just it's a joke, and but it's always working. So if I ask you, you are people very educated, very informed, but if I ask you, who knows Andrew Holmes? I guess that nobody will raise his hand. And if I put the same question, you ask the same question with Antonio Costa, nobody will raise his hand or hands. But if I ask you, who knows Usain Bolt? Who knows Cristiano Ronaldo? Everybody knows them. And the first one is the Prime Minister of Jamaica and Portugal. So they are in charge of their country. They are known by some people in Portugal and some people in Jamaica. And the other ones are worldwide known because they are stars in sports. And few years ago, just at the end of the 90s, I don't remember, it was in 98 or 98 or 99, President Chirac came into Latin America to make a visit. And he found clever to bring with him Michel Platini, which is a former captain of the French team, one of the best French players, and the best in the world, by the fact. And Platini went with him, and when he was with Chirac, everybody in Latin America asked, who is the guy near Platini? Because Platini was known by everybody, and Chirac was known by political journalists and so on. So that shows that sport is very important, it's an important matter. Bill Shankly, the former head of Liverpool, said, football is not a matter of death or life. It's much more important. And that's true that now, with football and sports at large being a global social factor, if you want to be a place in the map, it's better to be good in sport than in other things. And if you want to be known, to have your place on the map, to show the flag, sport is the best way to do it. And it's, in fact, it's the sportsman, the champions, as the new ambassador of a country. Because everyone knows Michel Platini, Zidane, Usain Bolt, and Cristiano Ronaldo. And they show the flag. They are ambassadors in short, in suit, swimming suit, in any capacity, but they are even more known now than philosophers, than singers, than, of course, political leaders, and they are much more appreciated than political leaders. Political leaders divide the public opinion. Sportsmen gather public opinion. And in fact, it's due to a new definition of power on international stage. Because in the former time, power, it's army, it's economy, it's hard power. And as you know, Joe and I has made a difference between hard and soft power. Hard power, it's a way to impose to another state, to another international actor, to do something it would not have done without your pressure. Hard power, it's to oblige some actor, mostly a state, to do some things he wouldn't have done without pressure. Soft power is to convince another state to do some things it would have done without your pressure, without your influence. It's more influence. So hard power, it's a way to oblige another state to do some things. Soft power is to convince. Soft power is the popularity. Soft power is the image. And if you are popular, it's easier to convince the other. It's not a power of constraint, it's a power of convince. And if you are popular, it's much easier to make the other countries on your end, on your way. And there is another difference, because in the old definition of power, a superpower, an hyperpower, power with military tools and so on, will be rejected. US, after Iraqi war, has won the war, but was rejected as a power. Because military power is highly unpopular by the people which were conquered by this power. Sports is very popular even by the ones who are conquered by sports. If you are losing against Brazilian team in football during the 90s or the beginning of this century, if you are losing against French team just after the victory in World Cup, you don't mind, because these teams are popular. And so the difference between a factor of powerness, which create hard power, creates rejection, create hate, create anger. Soft power create admiration. You won't admire a strong army. You will admire a champion in sport, and everybody. You don't need to be Jamaican or to be black to have an admiration for Usain Bolt. But if the Jamaican sent an army in other West Indies island to conquer them, they will be rejected. So the popularity is something very different, and power in sport is not rejected, is not hated, but on the contrary is admired and loved. That's the difference between soft and hard power. So in the international stage, it's every day more difficult to find a place. There is a lot of state actors, 4 times more than at the creation of a United Nations, a lot of NGOs, a lot of international firms, a lot of international organizations. So there is too much people on international stage, ought to be known, ought to be quoted, ought to be remarked by sports. By sport, because in newspaper, not only in sports newspaper, but in every newspaper, sports, it's figure number 1. What the people are talking about the Friday evening of the sports competition for the weekend. What are they speaking about on Monday morning of the results of the competition? Sport, it's a social factor which gather everyone. Because when you are a commentator of sports, there is no difference between the boss and the employee. Even someone who is out of job is able and is legitimate to speak about sports, which is not the case when you speak of geopolitics or economy. If you want to speak on economy, you need to have a PhD or to be the boss of a society. If you want to speak about sports, everybody could do. So it's very democratic, and that's why everybody wants to speak about sports, and that's why sport is a very important, very important in our society and in our life. And the difference between UK has created, England has created 2 things in the 90s, democracy and sports. They try to conquer the world for democratic values by war. It has been a failure. The Iraqi war was a good demonstration of that. But for football, they just show how to make. And so football has become the most universal things in the world. It's the very symbol of globalization. Everybody is playing football. Globalization is electricity, is internet, is democracy, market economy, but even in place you have not market economy. Even in North Korea you are playing football. Even in the more remote place of Africa you are playing football. So football has made the conquest of the world, but with the admiration, the requirement of the people who have been conquered. You have a refusal of to be conquered by the army, and an approbation, an enthusiastic approbation to be conquered by football. Due to radio, due to TV, because television has created a universal stadium. You don't need to be there to enter in. You don't need to buy a ticket. You don't need to be on the same place, and you could see the final of the World Cup even if you are far away. And so you have 2.5 billions of people who have watched the World Cup final. There is no other human activity which could gather so many people at the same time, coming from Asia to Africa, from Europe to Latin America. So everybody is concerned by the final of the 100 meters in Olympic Games, by the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games, and by the sports events. There is no other events which could gather as many people like this as the events. And so that's why every country has a sports diplomacy. In the 90s, mid-90s, the Emir of Qatar went to England, and at the douane, je ne sais pas s'il y a un autre mot, enfin, pardon? Customs, the people ask him, but where is Qatar? What is this kind of country? You don't know Qatar. But no, Qatar has bought Paris Saint-Germain and has won the right to host the World Cup, and everybody knows Qatar. Because in my country, in France, due to the fact that they bought Paris Saint-Germain, just before they bought Paris Saint-Germain, only the people who work on gas and on Arabic Gulf know where Qatar is located. But no, my baker, my neighbors, my grandmother know where is Qatar, because in every day you are speaking about Qatar and Paris Saint-Germain. So it's very the most important, most practical way to be known. At the big, so now there is two competitions: to win trophies, to win the World Cup, to win the gold medal, and to win the right to host this worldwide competition. Because, for example, if the 13th of September, France and Paris is awarded by the right to host Olympic Games, Paris will be at the center of the world during the Olympic Games and just before. And everybody will see the Eiffel Tower, the Château de Versailles, the Grand Palais, and everybody has seen Rio 2 years ago. There is no other events which is more viewed, like Olympic Games and World Cup. So to win trophy, to have the right to host these globalized events, and the fiction is that sports and politics don't mix together. It's really, really hypocritical. It's really wrong. And Pierre de Coubertin has stated that since the beginning, and he was, I think, he was lying. Perhaps without knowing that he was lying, but it was false, because Coubertin has two goals. The first one is to contribute by organizing Olympic Games to the pacification of international relations. Because if you are in a competition with other people, you know them, you need them. And it's you open your mind toward other civilization, toward other countries. So that's clearly admittable. But he had in mind another goal. It's to contribute to have the French youngness in a better shape. Because we have lost the war against Germany in 1870, and due to the lack of physical preparation of French young people. And he wants to have strong young French people. And so it's in both ways very politics. Because just after the World War I, Germany and the other countries which have lost the war were excluded from Olympic Games. In order to avoid that they could have their revenge on the pitch, on the ground, regarding their defeat on the war. So it was really a political goal, strategic goal, to not to allow these countries to participate to the games due to the fact they have lost the war. And the mix, the links between sport and geopolitics were also viewed in Berlin, 1936. Not the way many people thought, because it was not the Hitler triumph. The Germany was awarded the games in 1931 when Hitler was not in power. And it was a way to reintegrate Germany. They were excluded from the games in 20 and 24, admitted in 28, and in 41, the Olympic Committee decided to award them with the game, to organize the game, to see that Germany is normal again. But Hitler came to power in 33, and everybody has in mind the triumph of Hitler, the Stavisca in the stadium, but it's not the main facts of Berlin Olympic Games. The main fact is Jesse Owens' victory in 4 different races and competitions. And the first athlete to win 4 gold medals in the same competition. And to see a black man winning was the worst thing for Hitler, because it has dismissed all the theory on the superiority of Aryan over the other races, and black as the other. So even Berlin in 36 was not a victory of Nazis, but much more a defeat for Hitler due to Jesse Owens and due to the friendship between Dieter Lutz, a German athlete, and Jesse Owens. An Aryan, white man, and a black together, it was a real disaster for Hitler. And after, there is another story with the entry of Soviet Union in Olympic Games. Soviet Union at the beginning did not want to participate to the game because it's the sports for the bourgeois, for the capitalists, and so on. And they have decided in 52 to be in, because the games took place in Finland, which was close to Soviet Union and which was a neutral country. It would have been impossible for Soviet Union to participate in a NATO country of the games. So they enter in the games in 52. And in this time, you have 3 different villages, Olympic villages. One for the men, one for the girls, because we don't know what could happen, and one which was mixed for the Soviet athletes. Not to mix, so the Olympic Committee don't want that girls and men mix together, and the Soviet Committee don't want that their athletes mix with other people. And so that's why they have done a special Olympic village for their athletes. But from this start, every Olympic Games was a competition between East and West. In a bipolar world, the competition, you have every year the account of nuclear weapons, of tanks, of army, number of soldiers between Soviet and USA, and every 4 years, the number of gold medals. Because if the Soviet Union won more gold medals than USA, that means that their system is better, superior to the capitalist system. But if, on the contrary, USA was the winner of the competition, that means that the capitalist or liberal system is better, more efficient than the communist. And you have this competition also between East and West Germany and between every country. And I remember when De Gaulle came to power in 58, De Gaulle was not a sportsman. De Gaulle was not interested in sport, but in 60, Olympic Games took place in Rome, and it has been a disaster for France. Only 5 medals, and none of them gold medal. And in Figaro, we have a picture of De Gaulle in sports suit with basket, and so I think De Gaulle he don't even know that basket could have existed. And De Gaulle started, yes, in this country, I must do everything to win something. Because even De Gaulle was not interested in sport, he has understood that if you want to raise the flag, if you want to show to the world that France is on the world competition again, because the Algerian run will be over, because he wants to restore the popularity and the image of France, it is not possible not to have a sports competition, to be humiliated in international competition. And 3 years from now, Laurent Fabius, who was even less interested in sport than De Gaulle, has created a special post of ambassador pour le sport, because Laurent Fabius, he's not a fan, I could tell you, but Laurent Fabius understood that sport, it's a way for a country to be on the spot. And he has understood that it's an obligation for France to have a special ambassador dedicated for sport, to organize events, to sell our training theory in the world, and so on and so on. And Sports have a lot of importance for decolonization, because when a country became independent, the first things they want to do is to belong to United Nations, but as well to FIFA and the International Olympic Committee. And for a young nation to be part of International Olympic Committee is even more important than to be part of United Nations, because nobody will watch the embassy, United Nations embassy on TV. Everybody wants to watch the sportsman on TV and the participation of Olympic Games or for the qualification of the World Cup or African Cup and the competition. So it's a way to make national identity stronger by an instant and soft patriotism. And so the sport, remember that in 1958, Algerian was still the war of Algeria between France and his colony, and some sportsmen flown away to make an Algerian team of football. And from 1958 to 1961, Algerian was independent only in 1962. But 4 years before, you have an Algerian team who are playing match in Africa, in a communist country. So they show the flag, they play the national anthem before having a state. They had a national team before having a state. And the ones who have learned a little bit international law, you know the old definition of a state, it's a government, a territory, and a people, and I must add a football team. Because if you're not a football team, you are not really a nation. And because you don't be existing on international stage. And so decolonization also fight against apartheid. Because South Africa, which has an apartheid regime, was excluded of Olympic Committee before being excluded of United Nations. And the exclusion of international life for South Africa has begun in sports. It was very visible. The African countries have fought to have this result. And so the isolation of South Africa began by sports, not by politics. And politics was the second round, but not the first one. Now the BRICS are the raising power in sports. You have a World Cup in Russia, Olympic Games in Russia, World Cup in Brazil and Olympic Games in Brazil, World Cup in South Africa, World Cup in China, and not in 2030, but Olympic Games, winter and summer in China. The exception is India. India is not very good in sports. It's due to the society, due to the caste system. In sports, everybody is on the same line at the beginning of the life. Even if you are powerful, even if you have a strong network, even if you are a billionaire, it makes not you running faster. It makes not you playing football very well. And in India, the caste system defines the status of every citizen since the beginning. It's difficult to change. So sport is very democratic because you are the one you are, or the one you become by gift and by work. We time to time say that in sport dictionary, the T is before the S because it's not the W is before S because you need work before having success, travail before success. So that's why India has a problem, and I think that it's for the national pride. Indian national pride is a problem. It could be a problem comparing to China and comparing to other activities. Sports, and among sports, football, it's the more universal social factor. Everybody knows Zidane, even in the more remote place of the world, Cristiano Ronaldo. So Zidane, Ronaldo, and these people are much more known than Bill Clinton, Pope Francois, and Bill Gates. And everybody loves them, which is not the case of the other. And so it's really the symbol of globalization, but with two differences. The first one is a globalization which is not dominated by USA. And in football, USA is doing very poorly, or at least not so good. But it's not the most important. The second important factor that in sports, in football, in sports in general, because we have seen that in Olympic Games, and in football in particular with European Championship, with World Cup, what do we think about globalization? That it erases national identity. Sports and football is making the contrary. Because when your team is playing, French team will play this evening against Spain. It's friendly matches, but still important because it's always nice to beat the other team. But every people inside French society is supporting the French team. Whatever are your political beliefs, whatever are your social status, whatever are your religious, the color of your skin. Same could be said with Olympic Games. When your star is doing a competition, everybody is for him. When Turkey has done very well in 2002 World Cup, even the Kurds were in favor of the Turkish team. Now the Belgium are very divided between the Welsh and the Wallon and Flemish, but when the Red Devils are playing, every Belgian citizen is for the team. So in any country, everybody is supporting the national team or the national hero as a sportsman. So contrary to globalization, to the other aspect of globalization, sports is reinforcing, it's a cement for national identity. And so there is few examples this way. And it's true for the old nation states, and it's also true for the new nation state. For example, Soviet Union had been split in 15 countries, Yugoslavia in 6, but Croatia in playing, it's a national identity factor. When Georgia, Ukraine, or Russia is playing, everybody gather to support the team. So it's true in every country. It's true for Brazil, Japan, China, and so on. But as you have a multipolarization in strategic issue, you have also a multipolarization in sports. I have told already of the BRICS and the fact that the world competition are now organized in emerging countries. And in the beginning, the first World Cup, it's only 13 countries because some teams didn't want to go so far in Uruguay. It's 15 days to go and 50 days to come back, 1 month for competition. Now you are coming in 1 day. So it's also, there is a relationship between globalization and sport because globalization is helpful for sports and sports is helpful for globalization. And the first Olympic Games, only 14 nations were participating with 200, 240 athletes, and only some teams won medals. The last Olympic Games in Rio, 85 or 86, I can't remember exactly, has won medals. So you have a really globalization, not only of the organization of competition. The World Cup has gone in Mexico, in USA, and when they come in USA, a lot of people say USA is not a football country. And after it came to South Korea and Japan, and the same people say that South Korea and Japan is not football country. We just not organize the worldwide sport event in this country. And after in South Africa, or a lot of foreign African country, and then to Russia and to Qatar. Because the goal of FIFA, once again, is to invade the world, but with pacific tools. It's a soft invasion. And the FIFA will say that the sun never set under the empire of football. It's better than Charles Quint. Because in every country you have a football team, even in North Korea once again. And so now you have this globalization of sports, like you have the globalization of society, of geopolitics, with a share of power, and with the fact that it's the soft, not only soft power, but the smile in globalization. It's a lucky and happy globalization. Because in sports, there is never war. Tomorrow is another day. If you are losing today, you could win tomorrow morning. and you need the other. And you don't need, once again, to be Portuguese or to be white to love Cristiano Ronaldo. Probably the first contact that kids will have with a foreign people will be a champion of sports. Could be a judoka, could be a footballer, maybe most possibly a footballer. But the first contact, the first to open his mind towards the outside world will be by sports. And 6-year-old kids won't know Portugal, but will know Cristiano Ronaldo. Won't know Jamaica, but he will know Usain Bolt. And so it's a way to open his mind, his heart, to other societies, to other civilization, and to be in a good mood with other. Universal, the Olympic Games are universal. Everybody is present. Everybody could take part. It's the bright side of globalization, and the dark side is on other ends. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Boniface. We're going to take some questions. Okay, Andrew?
Do I need a mic or can I shout? Yes, okay. Well, first of all, hello? Yeah, it's working. Well, thank you for sharing with us your very interesting insights on sports in terms of geopolitics. No wonder China spends millions of dollars on building up its football teams. And of course, so hosted the Beijing Olympics. But my question to you is that whether this, as you rightly pointed out, is part of soft power rather than just hard power, whether this soft power would encompass more than sports, because we are seeing what's happening in China, for example, spending millions of dollars establishing Confucius institutes around the world as part of China's culture. And secondly, in the terms of the media, China's CCTV has rebranded itself as CGTN, and then you have Russian Today, RT, and you have Al Jazeera English, you have Turkish television. So that's media. It's also part of the soft power to at least give another perspective of the narrative. And then thirdly, even in films, China's building now the world's largest and most high-tech film studio in Qingdao in partnership with Hollywood. And also China has bought up the largest studio chains, AMC and Legendary in the United States, and combined with the studio chains in China, it will be the biggest studio chains in the world. And it's going to produce films starring of Chinese stars and also Hollywood stars, like the recent film called Great Wall, starring Mark Damon, which can sell both in the United States and in China, and by definition, the rest of the world. So my question to you is that now soft power is a multifaceted thing. It's not just sports. Sports, of course, very important, as quite rightly highlighted, because there's the Olympics and so on, but it's also culture. It's also the narrative. It's the media, it's the films, and the narrative even in think tanks and so on and so forth.
No, I could not agree more than your remarks, of course, because soft power is not only sports, it's multifaceted. For example, Qatar is playing both on football and Al Jazeera, and China on football, on CCTV, on Confucius Institute, and so on. So sport is one aspect of soft power, it's not the only one. But when you are a state and when you want to be a leading state, you need to play on many piano, on many facets of soft power. Sport is one of the more important, but it's not the only one. And that's why China is playing on different circumstances. That's why France has also created France 24, but tried to host Olympic Games. So sport is part of soft power, but you cannot resume soft power as a sport even. It's one of the aspects of soft power.
Questions?
I wanted to ask you a question about sports and money, because sports is increasingly expensive. It may be democratic, but it's a very expensive thing. So I wanted to ask you about the financial part, and because lots of money comes from the private sector, and yet you are saying that sports is an instrument for the public sector, for the state. So how do you see the interaction in the capacity of the private sector to even sabotage the soft power that a state might want to project? And at the same time, as we are at it, and on the more democratic side, why is it that now we have the rise of populist movements all over the place, and everybody minds establishment and people earning a lot of money? Nobody seems to mind Ronaldo earning exaggerated amounts of money. Why is it that it doesn't disgust the masses, right?
It is highly discussed.
Yes, I know it's discussed, but it doesn't really kind of cause a revolt. We will not go to this football match because they are getting too much money or whatever.
Nobody is obliged to spend 100 euros to buy a jersey. And so it's a free movement. And there is always difficulties between sports and money. Because for many people, it's normal to earn money by making fun. And I remember very well Copa, which was the best French player in the 50s, 60s. In this time, there is few money in sports, and Copa probably earned twice the salary of a usual worker. But if Copa went from the mine, because he worked as a miner, someone in the mine before, and when he was playing a little bit poorly, some people in the stadium shoot, lazy men, come back to the mine, you don't want to pay for you, and so on. But in fact, sport is a communist system. Because the money come back to the one who make money. In fact, if Ronaldo is earning a lot of money, it's due to his gift. He has not ordered delocalization to earn more money. He's not the one who has decided his salary. There is a joke, one of Tikkun have a football team, and the forward came and said, I want this amount of money to play for your team. And the Tikkun said, but you will earn more than my director, my financial director. And the player said, oh, ask him to score. So you have a lot of money, but it's due to the fact that you have more and more people buying jersey, paying channel to see TV, and you have more and more sponsors. And this money is redistributed to the one who are as a source of profit. So it came back to players. It came back to the athletes, to Usain Bolt. Usain Bolt is not stealing anybody. Never Cristiano Ronaldo. So we could say that on a social aspect. It's strange to see someone earning so much money. It's capitalism. It's free market. Once again, no one is obliged to pay every money to have a seat. So it's and another thing is that FIFA and IOC are redistributing money to poor federation. You have a lot. For example, you have a refugees team at Rio. People coming from Syria, from Eritrea, from Sudan, were able to play due to the IOC invitation. And the FIFA, so Blatter has been criticized to be the patron, the corrupted patron of football, but he has given a lot of money to African Federation. So I think the fault line is money has an influence over the result. In this case, it will be the end of sports. It is not, so you can say that the richer football team, club, are more able to win the competition than the poorest. But for the national team, it's not the case. Slovenia could beat USA. And a poor country could be, Costa Rica could beat USA. It's not the case in other field. So that's why we need, in our case, to protect the national competition, competition between nations, among nations. And at Olympic Games, the results is not linked with the GNP. It's linked with other factors. So that's why, of course, you could say it's unfair to see someone so rich. But at least a football player has not created an employment, has not stolen the money, and he didn't ask, just accepted the money which was proposed to him. And it would be foolish not to do it.
I have a question for you. I've been curious here in Asia, in translation, some of these sports figures, you said, very well known, they're ambassadors, very well known, and some of them have chosen to translate their charisma and their well-knownness into politics. I think Pakistan is one, and Manny Pacquiao, the question I have for you, in terms of these in the West, how many? I mean, is that a natural passage? Many of them are well known. About 2 months ago, in this room, we had the honor of welcoming somebody who was almost twice the size as me, Yao Ming. Yao Ming now has a role. I understand, seeing in the newspaper, the government he's now a representative of the CPPCC, I believe. And so the role of these sports figures, translating their power or their charisma into politics.
Yes,
can you talk about that a little bit?
It has been always the case in other fields, because in former times, a well-known writer or a well-known actor could become a political actor. And now, as sportsmen as well known than the other people, they could try to do it. A few of them are doing it, but some will try because they are known and they want to transfer their popularity into politics. It was the case, for example, of Berlusconi. Berlusconi in Italy has bought the Milan AC, and after he has bought TV, and he has transformed his popularity into political field. But you have also, on the other hand, people, perhaps he will come soon in Hong Kong, Lilian Thuram, which is very well known. He has a record of selection in French team, and he has transformed his popularity into the fight against racism, because he has created a foundation. And I must say that the fact, and Eric has told at the beginning of the conference of the French national team, the so-called black blamber, it was a way, in a country in which you have some part of the public opinion who is racist, the way to show to a large public opinion that black people, Arab people, and white people could play together and be the winner of the competition. Due to the fact that there is only, if we were only white men in the French team, we will be eliminated soon. And so it's a good way to show. And remember Didier Drogba, Ivory Coast. Ivory Coast was at war in this time, in 2005. And Ivory Coast was qualified for the first time in history to the World Cup in Germany. And Drogba, and there is a war between Muslim and Christian, between South and North. And Drogba, with other teammates, went down on their knees, claiming to the political leaders to do what they have done, to be together, and to make peace as they have made an effort to qualify. Say, we have done this, we have qualified the team for the World Cup, so it's your turn to make peace. So sometimes it could use as something contrary to democracy, but most of the time it's a way to have a social investment.
Any other questions? Okay, over here.
Now the fastest growing sport in the world. Sorry, thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah. The fastest growing sport in the world is called mixed martial arts. For everyone, it's actually fighting in a cage, which is prohibited in France and which is very famous in the USA and here in the region with 2 famous companies. I wanted to have your input on the influence of politics for growing sports. Is it ethics? Is it business? How do politics influence sports in general?
So, of course, this sport is increasing, but it's limited to a few people, fortunately, because I'm not sure it's sports and it's so it's different. But coming back to our question, there is no rules. It's fighting with no rules. You have the right to do everything you want, to kick in the ace, so it's no, it's. But what is I did not get your point.
Basically, right now there's sports which is very famous sport, which is very famous
This one? Okay.
in the USA and
Yeah.
in the region. Out of Singapore, there's a company called One FC,
Okay.
and they have events everywhere here in Asia.
Yeah.
So there's money involved. The company in the US was sold for $4 billion US.
Hold on.
That was last year to a big group with Asian investors and US investors, a hedge fund. And there's money involved. There's an audience. There's events. There's competition. There's now clubs here in Hong Kong. There are a lot of, they call MMA clubs. But especially in France, the politics are not involved. So what's the take
No, because
on,
it's forbidden in France because the French government, I think he is right, thought that it was a threat for the citizen, a threat for the people who are practicing these sports. You can be killed, and it's not a good way to show and to attract more people. Some years ago, there is a, I don't think it's sports, but it was in some party you could launch a dwarf. I don't know if it's sports or not, but it's not really respectful. So I think that mixed martial arts and launch of dwarf are the same way. It's to attract people, but by the dark side of human society, because they come to see blood. They come to see someone killed or someone hurt. I don't think it's very positive. But boxing, you have rules. No, the difference, boxing, you have rules. Judo, you have rules. Mixed martial arts, it's not clear that you have rules.
I had a question about the Olympic Games and the question of the media. Olympic Games are, they gather non-professional sportmen,
Yes.
women.
They did.
And,
They did.
but
No, they did.
They did.
Since 92,
Oui.
you have professional basket,
Basket or football, perhaps.
tennis players, and so on.
But the question is regarding the media and the role of some American broadcasts like NBS, for instance. Is it a risk that one day, because one country which doesn't fit to NBS wants to compete for the organized Olympic Games, there can be a blockage from this?
Yes, there is a
company?
risk because they try to exclude the sports which could not be popular on TV. And but on the other hand, the traditional sports like pentathlon modern or arms wrestling are still Olympic competition. So they have changed a little bit the rules of, for example, volleyball, and above all beach volley, and above all feminine women beach volley. So they try to do something different to attract people, but at the end we have protests in, I think in Sydney, because they change the schedule of swimming competition in order to have the audience in USA. But on the other hand, some people have proposed to make 4 interruption in a football match to be able to have more advertising. And the Football Association said, no, we keep 2 half and no more. So it's still a competition between tradition and you have to open, you have to change the rules time to times. I think it's better that football forbid to make a tackle from behind. It's a protection of player. And so you have to adapt the sports to modernity, to new rules. But on the other hand, that you have to avoid to kill the golden goal. Because if you change too much the rules, nobody will follow the competition.
I would like to have your views about the strategy of Qatar in France, because what we've seen is that if Qatar is investing a lot of money in football clubs or even in broadcasters such as beIN Sports and Al Jazeera, still, in the French opinion, Qatar has not a very good image. So there might be some limits to this like soft power strategy.
Oh, yeah, true. Because in fact, if you are not known, you have no critics. But if you are well known, you have admiration and critics. So for Qatar, it's both ways. For example, the situation of migrants in Qatar is the same as in Saudi Arabia, than in Hong Kong or Singapore. But there are a lot of critics for Qatar because the World Cup makes the situation more visible. And so you have it both ways. For some people, Qatar now is a place on the map, so it's good, but sometimes it's unpopular. Plus the fact that it's Paris. And in France, Paris is not very well loved by the other city, Marseille, Corsica, and so on. So there is still jealousy against the capital. But at the end of the day, Qatar thought that they have some inconvenience, but at the end they have more advantages to have to be known, to have contacts, and to be able to host. For example, the presidential tribune of Paris Saint-Germain, they could host minister, prime minister, even former president, who is very active in this way, and so it's also public relation. And so, of course, when Paris Saint-Germain is losing 6-1 against Barcelona, it's not very popular. But if they had won, the image of Qatar will have taken some advantage of that.
Okay. All right, one last question, then we're going to end.
One last question. Hello? Yeah. Going to Olympics is fascinating. For 1 month, we're going to be behind our teams and look at the superstars, and it's very, very thrilling. Now, organizing Olympic Games is very expensive. You need to have maybe new airports, new train station, new facilities. You mentioned in your talk that the revenues from Olympics are gathered from tourism, marketing, TV rights. Now, my question is it more expensive to organize the Olympics than what the money you're going to receive? And if so, why do we do it in economical situations as we have in France? And in your view, do you think France is worse off or better off organizing the Paris Olympics?
Oh, you have the answer to your last question. No, but you raise a very important question. There is no clear answer to your question. It depends. For organizing games in Beijing or Sochi is very expensive, but but I think that for Beijing and Moscow, money was not an issue. National pride was an issue, so they don't care. Of course, the result in Rio and in Athens was a failure, but it's not due to Olympic Games. It's due to Brazilian government and to Greek government, because they were not good. They don't spend the money in a rational way. And in Rio, you have a lot of equipment would be out of any occupation after. But if Greece was in trouble, it was not due to the games. It was due to the poor management of many different Greek government. On the other hand, Barcelona has changed since the game. It has become a very attractive city. It was not the case before. London has taken advantage of the game. And when coming back to Paris, the budget is 6 billion. And if you have to build an airport, the airport will stay. An airport is useful for a country. So we have to make a difference between the sumptuary expenses and the infrastructure expenses. But to have an airport, to have some hotel, it's quite useful, even after. Now the problem of games is the legacy. What legacy you will let to your country and to your generation? In France, both of the equipment are already built. We need only to have Olympic Village that will be transformed in using for young people after, so it's useful, and also a swimming pool. But a swimming pool, it's a good thing. It's in the eastern part of France. So I think in this envelope, 6 billion, it's affordable. Sorry? Yes, because no, you are right, because never attend. No, you are right, because never attend nor Rio are stick to the budget. But Paris will, because the expenses are already done and budgeted. You have only, as a new equipment, you don't need to build an airport. You need to build train between, but the train would be, I could tell you, but I would love to have this train right now. And tomorrow morning, I would have loved to have this train, unless not being trapped in a traffic jam. And so I think that, so you will say that I'm not neutral, which is true, but the expenses will be useful. And I could also tell you that I was both in London and in Rio. You have demonstration in Rio, but not against the game, against the government. People were proud to be at the center of the world. And when you look at the situation in France, what is our main problem? Is pessimism. Because we have a lot of assets. And French are more pessimistic than Afghan and Iraqi. It's crazy. And to have the games will be a way to boost the morale of the country. Will be useful for every young people in the northern department and so on. So I really, it's not if the bill would have been 20 billion, it would have been different. But with a 6 billion budget, it's worth it.
Well, on that positive note, and my only Olympic game was the Beijing Olympic, and I have to say that did transform China, and it is something of a coming out party, and like Seoul was. So I think there is flip side, the positive side of a game, but also in New York, I remember when they were bidding for it. I think 1 in 4 New Yorkers, 3 in 4 New Yorkers did not want it because. So I think both have you have some really interesting point. But I want to thank on behalf of Asia Society, thank you, Dr. Boniface, for being here and giving us this wonderful talk. And I look forward to welcoming all of you back for future program. We have some great programs coming up. And thank you all for being here this evening. Thank you.